So Halloween came out in 1978 and was directed by the legendary John Carpenter. This was one of his very early movies. He basically did this on a very low budget and it made a lot of money. So the contrast between the low budget and the high box office takings really made for a new genre, not just the Halloween genre itself, the actual movie franchise, but everything that came afterwards, everything that you saw with Michael Myers, you later saw with Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, Freddy Krueger in Nightmare on Elm Street, and Candyman in, well, Candyman. But as with those franchises, usually you will find that the first one is the best, or the first couple are the best, with a few exceptions here and there throughout the franchise, but most of them really not all that good, and they do it to death, and they really kind of run the franchise into the ground, which kind of makes you appreciate the originals a bit more, to be honest. I think this is why with Halloween they keep wanting to go back to that original movie and just kind of reboot it. In fact, what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to talk about the new movie, but I'm just going to spend about 10 minutes or so just recapping on where we are with this franchise, all the other movies that have come before. I've done this in a previous video and I was talking about how each movie, well, not each movie, but many of these movies have kind of retconned what they've done before, kind of creating like a parallel universe, almost like a cinematic universe, rebranded, and it's very weird, very difficult to explain in those kind of terms. So I'm not going to talk about how we've got about literally five cinematic universes within all these sequels because of all the retconning and rebooting that they've done over the years. I'm just going to talk about each movie, when they came out, and how they basically treated the ones that came before, and where this brings us today with Halloween Kills, which came out this year, and maybe how they're repeating some of the mistakes that they made in the past. So I hope this makes sense to me. Like I said, I'm going to talk about that for about 10 minutes, and we're going to come back and I'm actually going to talk about Halloween Kills. So it's a bit of a mixed video, this. Enjoy. So the original slate of movies, we had the original Halloween that came out in 1978. That's kind of the definitive one that John Carpenter directed. Then they wanted to do a sequel a couple of years later, so you had Halloween 2. Michael Myers came back in that one. He established that Jamie Lee Curtis's character Laurie Strode was actually the sister of Michael Myers, which was kind of re-explaining why he was going after her in the first one, or it seemed like he was stalking her more so than any of the other people he was stalking, so it kind of gave it a bit more of a personal touch. It was a bit of a stretch doing that, but it was something that they established. And in the film Halloween 2, Michael Myers is pretty much burnt to death. I think at that point that was the most dead we'd ever seen him. Obviously, end of the first Halloween, he escapes after having been shot a couple of times. So you can kind of say, well, he's not this indestructible force, he's just really strong, but ultimately if you do burn him, for example, he will die. Kind of like John Carpenter's The Thing. If you were to shoot that, it wouldn't die, but you could kill it if you burnt it entirely. So he wasn't indestructible, literally. It was just really tough. But Halloween 2 kind of established that you could kill him, he was dead. And that was pretty much continued kind of in the third one, because he wasn't in that film. That kind of established that Michael Myers was no more. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch wasn't even set in continuity with these movies. It was its own thing. It had nothing to do with the previous ones. They were trying to use the Halloween franchise as kind of a launch pad for a new anthology series. In fact, even in that movie, you see the first Halloween movie being advertised as a movie on a TV in the background. So they went out of the way to kind of distance this from those movies. Now, I'm going to take this out of the equation because a problem with this film, and I spoke about this last year on the channel, this movie didn't do very well critically or financially. It didn't make sense. People were confused. People wanted Michael Myers to come back, so they did a Halloween 4. So let's just put that over the top of that, because Halloween 4 brought back Michael Myers. It was Michael Myers Part 3, basically, even though it was Halloween 4. But let's just call it Halloween 4 for argument's sake. That one effectively killed off the Jamie Lee Curtis character, Laurie Strode, off screen. They established that she had died, and it establishes some new characters. Not a very good film. It was followed up shortly by Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Obviously, Halloween 4 was the return of Michael Myers. And then you had, it wasn't called Halloween 6, but that is what it was. I'm just going to reverse up a little bit because this starts to get a little bit excessive. Halloween, let's call it 6, The Curse of Michael Myers was the third. So basically, you've got 4, 5, and 6, kind of their own trilogy. They establish a whole load of extra dimensions to this whole thing. But again, Jamie Lee Curtis is dead at this point. Her character is dead. But these all follow on from each other. They do refer to Laurie Strode having been the sister of Michael Myers. So you can watch all these as a continuous thread. Ignore the fact that there was a third film that's kind of ignored at this point. But the problem was by 1995, when Halloween 6 came out, it really wasn't doing very well as such, but there was potential to keep making money. They knew that what they needed wasn't just bring back Michael Myers as they did with the fourth one and that'll solve all problems. People wanted Jamie Lee Curtis to come back. At this point, she'd just been very successful in the movie True Lies, which was an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. It showed that she was a really good actress, and I agree with that as well. And people kind of wanted her to come back, but she was dead. So what would they do? Well, they made, I guess, Halloween 7, but it's not really, because didn't she die? Wasn't she killed off screen in these other movies? So effectively, what we did here was where we retconned number 3 in order to make a 4, 5, and a 6. In order to make this 7th movie, we now need to retcon 4, 5, and 6. So what we're going to do is we're going to do what we did with Halloween 3. We're going to cover up Halloween 4, 5, and 6. And now we've got this set of movies, because you can't really have these movies and this movie because they're really not in continuity with each other. So now we've got the original Halloween, Halloween 2, and Halloween H2O, which now are their own thing. So if you're going to watch this film, you can only really watch it with these two. It's a bit of a stretch to watch this with these other films. So there's a lot of retconning going on here, isn't there? Well, I'm only just getting started. The next film after this, a couple of years later, they brought in, this is the worst one, in my opinion, of all the movies that they've done, including Season of the Witch, kind of its own movie, but that was I won't rewind too far back. Let's talk about Halloween Resurrection. Terrible movie, came out in 2000. Obviously, this one came out in 1998 for the 20th anniversary. That explains why it was Halloween H2O. The 90s were weird for like doing these weird codes. Like Mission Impossible was like MI whatever, and Independence Day was ID4 because it was Independence Day 4, as in 4th. It was weird. They used to put these codes on films. So Halloween H2O, cheesy 90s name. The next one, like I say, was Halloween Resurrection 2000. Jamie Lee Curtis really didn't want to be in this film, apparently, so they killed her off right at the beginning. They kind of rewrite the ending of Halloween H2O. At least they don't retcon it anyway. We're not doing that. This is effectively their 4th movie in this kind of newly designed franchise that's retconned a lot of the movies that have come before. So they've got these, but in this one, they kill off Jamie Lee Curtis, like I say, and they do it on screen this time, whereas in Halloween's 4, 5, and 6, they kind of killed her off screen and just said, oh yeah, forget about her, she's dead. Didn't you get the memo? This one, they kill her off. It's very disrespectful to the character. It was terrible movie, and that kind of killed the franchise for a while. Now, we did get then the Rob Zombie remakes. These are in no way sequels. This is a reboot. I think they were quite well liked in a lot of ways, but I'm not going to get too much into those. What happened then was they wanted to keep milking the franchise further, but like, how do you do it at this point? Well, what they did was they thought, well, we've done that many retcons before. They brought out this Halloween movie in 2018, obviously, and the way that this works, how do we do this? It retcons everything. In fact, yeah, let's just put that on top of there. I'm going to have to stand here now from an angle of elevation because it's just getting ridiculous. It basically retcons everything that came after that first film, even the second movie, Halloween 2, which established that, if I can find it, where is it? I think I've buried it right at the bottom. Well, basically, it retcons Halloween 2, in the sense that they don't even now refer to Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis's character, as having been the actual sister of Michael Myers. They went out of the way to say that. They even say in this movie, there was a rumor that Laurie Strode was Michael Myers' sister. And yeah, no, it was just a rumor. That's not true, kind of thing. So they went out of the way to say this is the true sequel to Halloween 1978. And it was a very good movie, in my opinion. And a lot of people agree with that. It made a lot of money as well. So obviously that was something that was quite a nice surprise anyway, because I was very skeptical when this movie was announced. Now, at the end of this movie, spoiler alert, if you haven't watched it yet, it's been like 3 years, so I'm going to assume you've seen it. He is left for dead at the end of the movie. He's burning. Well, he's left in a lot of flames. You don't actually see him fully burning to a crisp, but the assumption is that he is dead. This movie was very well respected because it kind of deals with post-trauma stress. It was done in kind of like a serious light, but there was some sort of like jokes in there as well. It was really nice balance anyway, basically. And it kind of said, well, everything that's come out before that they've done, apart from the original one, was crap. We've got this new concept. We're going to do it as a serious thing. It's going to be entertaining as well. And it ends. They don't hugely set things up to be continued, but you could kind of see how they would. They knew what they were doing. They had a redundancy. If this movie didn't do well, they've said, well, effectively, they've told the story. Michael Myers is dead, the end. But if it does make loads of money, which it did, they're going to have to keep milking it, which is unfortunate because then basically you're now in a situation that you had with all these movies. And that is the situation we've got, unfortunately, with Halloween Kills. I did enjoy it for what it was, but let's get into the specifics of that now, and I'll talk about the actual movie itself. So, how confusing, seriously. I think for the sake of simplicity, let's just, from here on out, let's just ignore the fact that there have been other films beyond that original 1978 film and the 2018 film. So we're only going to really talk about Halloween Kills. That's the new film that came out this year, 2021, in context of the 1978 original and the 2018 sequel to that. Just for the sake of simplicity. So basically, as I say, there were others, but they made mistakes, and I tend to be thinking with this one, they're remaking those mistakes because, as we've seen with lots of other franchises in the past, they've claimed to have killed off the character only to bring them back. So any future time you claim that you're killing this character, for example, having a movie out in 2022 that purports to end the franchise, literally the name of it is Halloween Ends, unless they've got some other spin on it, we're not really going to believe them. And ultimately, as I say, when you've got a villain, a boogeyman that cannot be killed, that they go out of their way to say cannot be killed, there's no unless you do this, like Wolverine in the X-Men, they kind of said he could be killed if you cut off his head or whatever, but generally he was pretty indestructible, but you could kill him. In this one, they've pretty much said you cannot kill him, unless, of course, they retcon that aspect in the next film. It kind of makes you thinking, well, what's the point? And this film, Halloween Kills, really does kind of make that mistake. Don't get me wrong, despite all this, I still enjoyed it for what it was. I kind of knew what to expect. When you've been watching these kind of movies for a long time and following these kind of franchises, you know the score. And you know exactly why they're making these movies. It's for the sake of money. That, I think, was the reason why Halloween 2018 was a bit different, because it felt like they actually had something to say. The movie makers, not just the studio that were investing in it, but the actual producers, the scriptwriter, the director, even Jamie Lee Curtis as well as an actress, I think she produced it as well, had something to say, and there was a point there, and that showed because it made a good movie. Yeah, you dealt with things that you do touch upon in horror movies like post-trauma stress, but this one really was at the forefront of it, and a character development. Heaven forbid we should have character development in these kind of movies. That was what made that last one not amazing, but it was a bit special because it was better than a film like that should have been. Whereas in this one, it's just like, yeah, she's got post-trauma stress, but we're just gonna have a messy story and really, all these characters that you've kind of invested in, they're expendable anyway, because we know the tropes, we've got to kill them off, that's what you want to see, right? Well, I would say wrong. I think you can have a movie that is basically a bloodbath like this, Halloween Kills, and a lot of people die in it. But this one is very nihilistic. Now, spoiler alert, I'm going to obviously get into some of that. But basically, many of the characters that you had established in the previous two movies, especially the original one, because they bring back a lot of characters, not necessarily the same actors and actresses, although in some cases they even do that. They pretty much all die. There's very few left now. So I'm thinking, what are we returning for? This is Michael Myers' movie, is Halloween Kills, which in a lot of ways is great. It's not told from his perspective as such. There's still a lot of mystery to him. There's a lot of stuff that they kind of try to explain but don't. Such as, for example, he just wants to go back to that original house from 1963, the one where when he was 8, was it? Killed his family, stabbed his sister when he was a little boy. That's the house he wants to go back to. But why? And they keep kind of drawing him out of the house to kill him, but then he just ends up killing them and then goes back into the house. Doesn't really explain much. But in the course of doing so, like I say, all these other characters from the original film, you've got the two kids that were being babysit, the boy and the girl, they are in this as adults, they get killed. You've got the, which like a nurse or something that was with Dr. Loomis at the beginning of the original Halloween film, one that was in a car. They bring her back, the actress that plays her as well, it's great, but they kill her off. They bring back the main police guy from the first one, that was the first film from 1978. That actor's been in loads of John Carpenter movies, and he was in that. He was the one that was going around with Donald Pleasance, Dr. Loomis, in the original film. He gets killed off as well. He has some like really cool scenes as well. That's the sad thing. They kind of bring him back, and he's really old at this point as well. But they just kill him off, whatever. You know, it's like, you weren't invested in this character, were you? And it's just all done very pointlessly and very nihilistic. But I mean, it's great if you just want to see a grim slasher movie, and obviously everybody knows the tropes, like I say. So it's kind of, I don't know what you're complaining for if you're not happy with it, because this is the genre that you're kind of buying a ticket for. So again, like I say, I kind of expected this. I wasn't like surprised, and I was kind of hoping that they were going to do something unexpected, maybe like they did with the last one. But unfortunately, they kind of fell short. But having said all this, I'm being very negative. I am going to go see the next one. I'm kind of intrigued as to where they're going to go from here. I mean, it might be, because obviously these new movies are a trilogy, similar to how 4, 5, and 6, although there were a 1, 2, and a 3, 4, 5, and 6 were kind of its own little trilogy. The 2018 film, which was just Halloween. Yeah, that's a really creative name, guys. Then you've got the new one, Halloween Kills, the next year's Halloween Ends. That's kind of its own little trilogy. You might end up finding that Halloween Kills, the second in this new trilogy, is maybe a bit of a blip in what is a pretty solid trilogy, if the third entry is very good. Now, we're going to find that out next year, all being well, if this film comes out, to schedule whether or not that's the case. So it's going to be interesting me rewatching this video back in a year's time, like it is now me rewatching the previous videos I've done in previous years talking about the other Halloween movies, with where we're at with this one, because I was just as curious about this movie, Halloween Kills, back then as I am now about Halloween Ends now. Well, this is confusing. You get a picture anyway. So let's just see how that plays out. So like I say, if you've not seen Halloween Kills yet and you've heard negative things, or you've put off by what I'm saying, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, because like I say, it might just be a blip. If you have seen it and you're watching this video and like me, you were maybe a bit disappointed, but you've gone a bit further and you're writing it off, I say maybe reassess that, because the next one could be good. You're probably saying, Joseph, you fool, what are you talking about? It's going to be crap, it can only be crap. I thought that about the 2018 film. They're really messing with our minds here, aren't they? It's like, well, give them a good one, give them a bad one. It's like they're doing a proper like rope-a-dope to us here with these movies. It's like you think they're going to come at you with a shit film, and then they give you a good film, and then vice versa. So, well, I think Topher did something similar to the Buff one, the Topher dope, but separate issue. Buff, if you're watching this, yeah, maybe you can explain that. I can't remember quite how that worked. But yeah, with these movies, who knows? the studio that made these Blumhouse productions are a bit of a mixed bag. They've done some really good horror movies in recent years, in my opinion, by today's standards anyway. I've been quite impressed with a lot of stuff they've been putting out, but then they've done some pretty ropey ones as well. So what else would you expect from 3 Halloween movies, but maybe good and bad, bit of a mixed bag. But best of 3, let's just say that. We've got a trilogy here. We've got one that's great with the 2018 movie, one that's not so great. So I think Halloween Ends really will dictate whether or not we look back on these movies as worthwhile or not. I think that's the problem when you've got a franchise with so many movies. You get the sort of the good to bad ratio, and that determines how you look at the franchise as a whole. Because now with Star Wars, for example, in my opinion, again, this is all subjective, you've got way more bad movies than you've got good movies, but the good ones are like some of the best films like ever made. But when you think Star Wars now, you just think of 3 crap sequels, 3 crap prequels. Was it 2 spin-offs or something so far? Kind of mixed. Overall, more bad than good. So I think with this Halloween franchise, the next one that comes out is going to determine which way it goes. Because at the moment, it's kind of like a thumbs up, maybe a thumbs down for the new one. So we'll see. But I don't mean to sound too indecisive anyway. Like I say, there were bits of this one that I liked, but there was some stuff that was just a bit of a letdown. Some really good characters. They brought in some new characters in this. Again, they just killed them off. Not to sound all intersectional and so on. I mean, obviously that's the last thing I want to do. But the last film back in 2018, the best character in that film was a little kid that was being babysit. He wasn't in it too much, but he was by far the best character. And he was what they would refer to as a little black kid. And he wasn't because he was black. I'm not like saying that's why he was great, you know, like you get nowadays. With this new movie, the best characters in the movie, this gay couple, in my opinion. So again, it's like, what's with the sort of minority groups being given the best, in my opinion, you know, the best characters in this? It just happens to be the case. I don't think they did that on purpose, by the way. Anyone who's been saying that it's woke, it's really not. In fact, to be honest, some people have been complaining and saying that it's homophobic or something because they've got these 2 characters that are gay and they get killed off. It's like, everybody gets killed off in this. Do you want to be treated equally or not? That makes no sense. But anyway, that's very strange. Kind of this is what you get in the current state with movies. I think sometimes things get deemed unfairly, criticised unfairly anyway. So that's not really the point of this video. I'm kind of going off on a tangent. But yeah, I said I was going to give a shout out to Vicky anyway, who I went to see this movie with. So yeah, she asked me to give her a shout out. Hey. I think she enjoyed this as well. She's a big horror movie fan. She tends to prefer the movies that are a bit more sort of grim and nihilistic. So, but I mean, so do I, to be fair. It's done well. This one, like I say, would have been if they hadn't just killed off all these characters, these kind of sacred characters, so pointlessly as well, because they're getting into the same territory they got in with like Halloween Resurrection from back in 2000, for example. They just killed off Jamie Lee Curtis's character very unceremoniously and pointlessly as well. So it felt a little bit the same in this. It wasn't quite as unceremonious in this. It was like they threw a lot of money in this movie. One final thing I'll say about this, because this video is dragging. The original movie worked because they had a very low budget and a lot of creativity. This kind of feels like the negative to that positive. They threw a lot of money at this and they didn't seem to have that much creativity. I mean, it's very well shot. There's lots of like good little things and new angles and ideas that they do with this, but it just felt like they were coming up with things for the sake of coming up with things to make money off it because of the last movie, the 2018 one, making a lot of movies. So in some ways, he's kind of the anti-original Halloween from 1978. That was a low budget movie with some great ideas and that worked. This is a bigger budget movie. It's not massive, but in contrast, it's a bigger budget movie with not so great ideas. So it's interesting to see that kind of dynamic, how the two kind of can be compared to each other. That's one way, another way of looking at it anyway. Right, I'm going to wrap this up. This was a bonus video anyway, so tonight, well, in about an hour's time, well, depends when you're watching this, but this is going up at 7 p.m. tonight. There's going to be another video, the final video of the Halloween series special. not about Halloween the movies, but just Halloween the holiday season. Myself and my co-reviewer Core are going to be back. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters. Sorry, the video ran out. We're going to be talking about Ghostbusters. So I'll come back at 7 PM tonight, and I hope you enjoy it, and happy Halloween, everybody.